So, last month we ended off by doing some Splatoon drawings, as well as looking at some manga panels for reference. This was the piece that we finished off with, looking at some of the Splatfest designs of the Splatoon characters. But after this I decided what I needed to do was go back a little bit and into the third phase of my drawing journey, which was just looking at a bunch of different references for body parts like eyes and noses, mouths, just to try and get a better understanding of how these pieces should all come together. So first we decided to start off simple by just looking at a couple of different eye shapes, looking at different angles, going from straight forward to a more of a curved angle as well, just to kind of get an understanding for spaces between places like the eyelids and the eyebrows and the noses. After that I tried a couple more styles for different kinds of eyes as well. I also found a couple of character reference sheets as well for some Toradora characters, which you'll see as a running theme as we go throughout the book. This helped just to give me a better understanding of how the eye should fit into the greater face of the shape as well, and how they can contort with other parts of it like the nose and the mouth and the chin. And here we continue some more eyes as well, some faces from some Shirobako characters, and the first use of me actually inking some faces as well. So I stole this pack of pens from my brother. Borrowed this pack of pens from my brother, and it came with a couple different thicknesses of pens to use. I mostly stuck to the 0.3 and 0.5 as I felt like that gave me the best kind of balance between pen thickness and line weight when actually drawing with them. So that's what we'll see mostly going forward. So there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube that talk about learning the anatomy of skulls. It gives you a better understanding of eye placement, noses and mouths, and trying to then incorporate that into more pieces. So I found a couple of references online and tried to draw them out the best I can. Some of the proportions are a little bit off, especially lengthwise, but I think it kind of helped give me an understanding more of the shape as well. The chin and jaw is something that I struggle with especially as well, so I'm going to keep a note of that. Moving down the face, we have mouths as well. Sometimes it's only just a single line as well with a little gap in the middle, but I thought it'd be a good idea just to kind of practice the shape of teeth here, and even going into some more complicated setups over on the right. So for this page I tried drawing a simple anime head, but doing it from different angles, rotating around, which kind of gave me an understanding of how the face shape can change, and especially with the eyes and the nose as well, you can see here. This is just a generic guy head, but drawn from a few different angles. I like this one quite a lot. The eyes a little bit off here, the chin and the nose are a bit misplaced, and the head shape, but it's all a learning process, so I'm happy to move forward with this. So now we move on to every artist's worst nightmare, which is hands, and I tried a couple different methods for how to draw these, starting from breaking it down into basic shapes, just drawing it as I see it, trying to capture the motion, and it wasn't very easy. I can understand why a lot of people struggle with this. So I kept going for a while. Some of the fingers are definitely way off and way too long, but these are more complicated poses as well, so I am going to forgive myself a little bit for that. We're starting to get a little bit of a hang of it here. The hands are definitely more in proportion as well. Just ignore the long claw-like fingernails. I think I found this on Tumblr somewhere. So for this page I just drew a bunch of generic anime shaped heads and decided to focus more on hairstyles, splitting halfway between guy and girl hairs. I've heard that hair is something that a lot of people do struggle with because you can very easily go overly detailed, underly detailed. A lot of it does come down to shading and colour and highlights and shadows, so just drawing a simple outline here kind of gives me an understanding for basic shapes and how it should sit on the character's head. You can see here from the guideline references as well that the hair kind of extends past the top of the head, which is something that a lot of beginners make mistakes with, so it is something to bear in mind when you're drawing your own characters. So continuing on, we've got some more hairstyles, as well as some from different angles. I've also tried to incorporate some shading here, which I mentioned earlier, and how that kind of adds depth to the hair. So now we've got something a little bit different. I wanted to go back to practicing hands, but I also wanted to practice specifically the idea of drawing fire and ice. So this gave me a chance to practice both hands and fire, but similar to hair, a lot of it does come down to colouring and shading, so it's kind of difficult to draw great looking fire just with pencil and ink. Now I mentioned last month how this art journey is all in service of a greater secret project, and this right here is a very key part of it. But for what lies ahead, well, I'm still keeping that a secret for now. Let's see what beckons on the next page. So for this one I tried to emphasise the hand more, inking that and shading it properly while just keeping the fire quite simple and straightforward in pencil. And of course, what's fire without some ice? Now this one's a little bit more difficult because it can take many different forms. It could come up from the ground, it could shoot out of hands, it could appear as giant boulders. So I tried a couple different ways of drawing this. Here we've got some more hand practice here, if you want to call that a hand. And for this final page of magical effects, I'm showing a couple more poses of fire and ice being shot out as if it's in an actual scene. So this is taking some inspiration from shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender, as well as some just references that I found online. And that brings us to the end of February. It's a bit of a shorter video this time, but it's also a short month. So the next part of the plan is to take what I've learned here and reapply it back into the master study phase that I did last month, looking at manga and anime references, but trying to keep them more into proportion and to really try and drill down and nail those facial features. So hopefully this has been helpful for anyone else doing their own art journey, and I'm excited to see what comes next month as well.